Hi guys, so now that update 1 has been out for a couple of days, we can actually go ahead and create a tier list knowing what's actually good and what's not. So we're gonna jump into this tier maker, which by the way, I will leave a link down below if you guys want to create one yourselves and just be able to use that, so feel free to. But anyway, so let's jump right into it. This time around, I actually spread the categories like this: meta ground, meta air/hybrid, a support, good units, and units that you shouldn't really bother going for. They're kind of not that hot right now. But anyway, so we're starting off right here with Rukia. Rukia is a pretty decent support unit. She's the only freeze in the game, so even though she's epic, she's still pretty good, and she will see play in infinites. So if you don't have her, just go ahead and grab her. She's also a good unit to just place at the start if you want to stall until you have money to play something else. Maybe something like a Guts or something that costs, I believe, 800. So Rukia is a decent option for that. So anyway, next up we have Gojo Evolved. Now Gojo Evolved is the second best unit in the game right now, and arguably you could make the case that he's the best unit in the game right now, considering Mash is a secret that's... It's not something that, you can just go for, right? Like, secrets are not units that are intended for you to just go and get them. So yeah, Gojo, meta ground unit, obviously. He starts off as hybrid, which is pretty insane, like full AoE hybrid on placement. So the unit is kind of cracked. Now, a little bit about Gojo, there's two ways you can build him. You can either go for all-sync / support build, where you want to go maximum range on Gojo, so he can time stop the entire map. Or you want to go Gojo with Overload. He's going to be a great DPS unit. Does more than enough damage actually with Overload. So pretty good unit right there. The best unit probably in the game all around. Second best if you include Mash. Next up we have Adelgon. So Adelgon is a meta ground unit, but he's an infinite meta ground unit. You will only play him on infinite, and the reason for that is his passive. He has the cripple passive, which applies a slow that stacks with other slow effects, and he applies a 15% damage taken debuff to all enemies. So yeah, he's pretty decent for infinite must-have. He's the only unit currently in the game that provides cripple. That's why he's so useful. In terms of damage, he's not bad. I think Overload Gon does around 160k DPS, to give you an example. Now, I guess you would have to compare it with something else in order to understand what's happening. But yeah, Gon is definitely an infinite meta, but we're just gonna leave him at the bottom because I didn't go with like story meta or infinite meta, so I think we're just gonna leave him right there. Next up we have Asta. So Asta is a slow unit. He's only a rare, so he's very low cost placement. So if you want to stall, again, he's pretty good. Like, you can just I don't know, let's just bump him at the last like row of supports, because why not? Next up we have Oshi, Star Idol. So Star Idol is the best support in the game by far. Not only does she bring a lot of money, she actually gives a 15% rage buff as well, and 50% damage buff is also supposed to be in there, but it currently doesn't work, but it will get fixed soon. So yeah, she's by far the best support unit in terms of like doing it all for you. And okay, I just realized that I didn't really add Speedwagon here into this list. I probably should have, but whatever. Next up we have Itachi. So Itachi is a burn unit. Unfortunately, he is pretty weak in his current state, so he's really not that great unit. He does have Black Flame's ability, but even that doesn't really do a lot of damage unless you have Avatar. I did do some DPS tests on him, and he's really not that hot, so I would say don't waste your gems on Itachi. There's a lot more valuable things to go for at this moment in time. Next we have Pride Knight. Pride is the worst gold unit out of all of them. It's only 3 of them: Idol, Speedwagon, plus this guy. So yeah, this guy is not really worth going after either, so we're just gonna bump him right here. Next up we have Roy Mustang. Now Roy is currently the best burn unit in the game right now. I wouldn't say he's meta. Actually, we have to put him in meta because he's a burn unit, and you kind of want to bring one burn, right? It's extra like dot damage, doesn't harm anyone. So yeah, we're just gonna put him right here. He's currently the best burn unit. He's not on par with a couple of other like units that are Celestials, but he's still pretty decent all around. Especially if you have Avatar, he becomes a pretty viable option. But yeah, all around nothing too crazy. He's just a good unit, and he's the best burn unit in the game right now. Next up we have Saber, the new unit from this update. So Saber is definitely meta. She's actually pretty insane, especially if you get Shinigami on here. She's gonna do some atrocious amounts of damage. She's the third highest DPS unit in the game. So first is Mash, the second is Curse King with Avatar Sukuna, and then it's gonna be Saber Shinigami. Saber Shinigami actually beats Sukuna Overlord in terms of DPS, and we don't even factor the nukes that she brings into the table, like the 4 mini nukes that she has with her ability. So yeah, Saber is definitely high up there on the top 5 easily, maybe top 3 arguable units in the game right now. Actually, no, she's not top 3, she's top 5. Alright, next up we have Mash, the new secret unit that was added into the game last night. So Mash is a beast. He currently does the highest amount of damage in the game, and that's because he's an ultimate. If he was not an ultimate, he wouldn't. He's not that strong to the point where he's like broken damage-wise. He's like a little bit better than Sukuna at the moment, but yeah, he does the highest amount of damage right now in the game, and the thing that makes him so good is that he's actually hybrid slow. So he will stay meta for a really, really, really long time. Now, it is not a unit that you can just go for. Like, ultimate units are not like units that you can just go for them, so that might be a little bit hard to get. So yeah, if you get him, very nice. If not, don't really stress too much about it. Next up, we have Saitama. Saitama, definitely meta ground. He does a lot of damage, like actually a lot of damage. He does a lot of damage. Just pure damage for Saitama. He doesn't really do anything other than that, but he does a lot of DPS. He's I think he's the 5th or 6th highest DPS unit in the game, probably the 5th one. So yeah, not really things to say there. Next up we have Sukuna. Sukuna, honestly, you can make the argument that he's higher than Mash in this category due to the fact that he brings Flame Arrow, which is a nuke. And yeah, if you guys have Avatar and Sukuna, you have one hell of a unit. He's the highest DPS unit in the game, as I said, besides Mash, and he also provides Flame Arrow, so you could make the argument that he, in terms of like pure damage, he's actually better than Mash. Absolutely crazy unit, really strong. Also, Dismantle, which is his passive once evolved, does provide a very small slow as well, which is kind of cool. Next up we have Ulquiorra. Ulquiorra is a good unit right now. He's gonna be an insane unit once evolved, but as of right now, he is a pretty decent unit, so definitely not a trash unit that you shouldn't like bother going after. And yeah, next up we have Yamamoto. Yamamoto is another good unit. I was actually doing the math yesterday, checking out units DPS, and I was very surprised by Yamamoto's damage, because people consider him trash, including me. I really did consider him trash in the past, but Yamamoto is actually a very, very, very good DPS unit with Avatar, obviously because of his burn unit. So yeah, he's really not as bad as people claim for him to be. Next up we have Toad Boy's code unit. Now, I did add this unit here because it's a unit that everybody has access to, including starter players, and he is actually a pretty solid unit, especially for beginners, so I'm just gonna bump him right here into the bottom of good units because he's actually a pretty decent unit. Even though his damage got nerfed slightly, or rather adjusted, he's a pretty decent unit for starter players, so make sure you use him if you're just starting out, primarily because he also attacks air units, so in case you don't happen to like roll a Sukuna from the banner, if the banner is different starting out, he should be very useful. Next up we have Guts. Guts is the meta blade unit in the game, the best blade unit in the game. So Guts does more damage than Saitama. He also does that's Avatar Guts speaking. I don't think Overlord Guts does more damage actually than Saitama. Overlord Saitama. I'm not entirely sure about that though, don't quote me on that. But yeah, definitely the best bleed unit in the game. Sukuna is a dismantle, so he's not a bleed. Consider Sukuna like a super bleed, basically. That. And lastly, we have Genos as well. Genos is another good unit. You could make the case that he might just be up here on the top of good units just because of how good he actually is. Yeah, like he has a very low starting cost. He hits air, and you can place like so many of them at the start. So he does provide this very, very big niche. Alright guys, I did go ahead and crop 2 more units just to add them here to properly fill out this tier list. So next up we have Speed Card. So Speed Card, as I said earlier, is a great support unit. So essentially Speed Card farms more money than Idol, but he doesn't bring the buffs. So in a scenario like where you run Infinite, you can just have one guy bring the Idol to buff everyone, and everybody else can just go ahead and bring Speed Card. So he's still a pretty good like unit all around. He's the best mana unit by far. He just doesn't bring the rest of the utility that Idol provides. And lastly we have Yami, which Yami could be considered both a good unit, like he could be considered at the top of the good units list because of how great he is. You probably guys have noticed that Yami is the go-to unit for every story, sort of, like as a starter unit, placement unit. He has exactly the amount of cash that is required to drop him. Or you could also trade him like meta ground, considering of like the slow that he provides, I guess. So it's really up to you to decide where you want to place Yami. But I think it's correct if we just place him here on the good units. Considering Mash is now in the game, which does provide that slow, I think it's a better spot if we just add him right here. And I just realized that some units are missing. Alright guys, and lastly, to cap out this tier list, we have Zenitsu here. So technically speaking, in an infinite scenario, Zenitsu would be considered a meta unit just because he is currently the only unit in the game that does have Electrify. But I feel like it's kind of weird looking at this tier list to just put him up there. But yeah, just know that he has like this niche that he's Electrify. So for infinite, he's definitely a meta unit by far. There is no question about that. So we're just gonna put him in the good units list just because of his Electrify. And then we have Luffy time skip. So Luffy time skip is essentially another unit that does something very similar. He does have a stun. I think it's called Kokoro Haki, I'm not sure. It's an activatable ability. His stun was nerfed because it was kind of broken. I think it's now 360 seconds instead of 120. And I think that he was the reason like why bosses were getting bugged. He's the reason why the bosses are getting bugged. But yeah, so that should pretty much like cap up this tier list for you guys. That should be pretty much it. Let me know if you guys have any questions about any units or any objections. And yeah, I left the tier list down below so you guys can go ahead and use that as well. Thank you for watching and peace.